Good morning and a warm welcome to this service coming from Killin Parish Church. And a warm welcome to all the folks in Strathire and Balchidder and Lochern Head and of course Killin and Arjonig and all our friends in Crianlarich and Tyndrum as well. And of course some of you are further afield than that. But a warm welcome to each and every one of you. Let's begin with the great affirmation that we always begin our service with. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. This is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Amen. Now, I'm a bit worried that some of you are getting used to this. I can picture some of you watching this with your cup of tea in your hand, maybe still in your pajamas. You know, you've never had church quite so good as this. But hopefully once lockdown is over, we can get back to some kind of normality. It's not going to happen soon, as far as I understand. And so we're making the most of it. But it's great that we can do this. It's great that we can set this system up. And also that you indeed are watching and I'm getting lots of feedback. So thank you very much for that. Now, just a wee reminder that, yes, we tend to do the same things each Sunday. For example, the great affirmation that I've just made, Christ is risen, and then we always have the candle as well. And the reason for that is it's good to have a tradition and a framework within which we do our service. Because at this moment, what we're doing is we're touching base. We're reconnecting with this great faith, this living faith that we're a part of, reminding ourselves of its historic roots. So when we say the words like we've just said, or when we light this candle, we are affirming what Christians have affirmed for 2,000 years. So there's that historical dimension. Then there's the geographical dimension, that all over the globe, our brothers and sisters are doing exactly what we're doing today, affirming the faith and worshipping. Therefore, these words, these repetitions that we do every week, remind us that we are part of something rooted in time and in space. And therefore, it's good to have these traditions within which we can also be flexible as well. Another week has passed, and there's been good and bad in the news, and perhaps for some of us in our own personal and private lives and family lives, there have been good things and perhaps bad things. So it's good to light our candle and again reaffirm our faith before we go into a time of silent reflection and prayer. The light of the world has come. Jesus is the light of the world. The light shines in the darkness. The darkness will never overcome it. Let's pray. Lord, in the quietness now, still our hearts and hear our prayers. They may be prayers of thanksgiving. They may be prayers of petition for ourselves or those known to us. Or they may be our concerns about wider issues in our society and nation, and perhaps even our world. So draw near to us now as we seek in turn to draw near to you. Lord, in your mercy, hear all of our prayers. Let's recite the Lord's Prayer together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power and the glory, forever. Amen. A reading from the book of Isaiah, and it's Isaiah chapter 43, beginning at verse 18. And the words of God to the Babylonian exiles, the Jewish exiles in Babylon, I should say. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? I am making a way in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. The wild animals honor me, the jackals and the owls, because I provide water in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland, to give drink to my people, my chosen, the people I formed for myself, that I may proclaim my praise. Yet you have not called on me, Jacob. You have not wearied yourself for me, Israel. Amen. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? Challenging words. And of course, this was a dramatic moment in the history of Israel. I made the point last week where I showed you David Attenborough's revised version of the book Life on Earth, and also obviously it was the documentary series as well, way back in the 70s. And many of you have commented on that. You didn't realize it had been reissued, and I can recommend it if you're wanting a present for or a book for the future. But Life on Earth, as I said last week, was a tremendous epic, and so too is the Bible. As life finds a way, faith finds a way. The epic story of the Scriptures. And here we have God doing something new in the Old Testament story for the people of Israel. And likewise, we're living in the aftermath of the Easter celebrations a few weeks ago, and we're mindful that Jesus started something that was new and dynamic. And we are here only because of that revolution. So these words are about a God who likes to do new things. What is he saying to us in the midst of this weird situation, this lockdown, this pandemic? As we emerge from it, will we have heard his voice? And will there be new things happening? In the Scriptures, there's a future orientation. We can read it as stuff in the past, stories in the past, but the projection's always forward. And the Old Testament projects forward to the coming of the Messiah. And then for Christians, we look back to the coming of Jesus, but then he projects us forward into God's future. I like the idea of the expanding universe. It's quite scary and dramatic to think about it, that even as I speak, the universe we're in is expanding. And from the Big Bang, we've been hurtling towards the future. And yet, in a sense, someone once said, is it not the other way around? Is the future not hurtling towards us? Well, of course, it has to be both. And I like to think of us hurtling towards the future, and as we do that, because that's the way creation is, God is also hurtling towards us to bring the future breaking in to the present, That's the message of the Scriptures. And here we have in ancient Israel the future breaking in to the world of the exiles to offer them hope. And it was the same in the New Testament with Jesus, the events of Easter. Part of the future broke into the present to captivate, to entrance, to equip those who experienced this and saw this and heard this, to then orientate themselves towards this wonderful future, God's future, with a mission and a task. In the Scriptures, very often we have a proclamation. For example, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, the very first verse of the Bible. Here in this passage, God proclaims, I am doing a new thing. And we open this service with a proclamation, Christ is risen. And these proclamations include in them, either explicitly or implicitly, an invitation. When we say Christ is risen, that's a proclamation that God has done something wonderful in Jesus. But there's an invitation there for us to tune into that. What does that mean for us? How do we participate in this? The proclamation is not meant to just be a voice crying in the wilderness. It's meant to challenge us, to draw us in with an invitation to participate in what God is doing. And here we have, in a sense, the message that God is going to take the exiles back to the land of Israel, and they can rebuild the temple and the city. And yes, it's a long way through the desert to get there, but God said he will provide. He'll provide water in the wilderness. Now, the Lady of the Manse had a special birthday this past week, and one of the presents she got from her children, it was a long box, and when we opened it, it was cut flowers with very tight bulbs. But as soon as we put put the flowers in the water, it was a miracle. You could almost see them growing and expanding. And they are behind me today. To see that transformation because of water is a tremendous testimony to the miracle of nature. But it's a metaphor used here in this passage that we've just read about water in the wilderness. Water is a source of life. And God's living water is there for us to transform us so we may bloom and blossom. That is the power of this faith. But notice in our reading, God finishes that little bit that I read by saying, after proclaiming what he's done and is doing, yet you have not called on me, Jacob. You have not wearied yourself for me, Israel. What is God saying? Saying, hey guys, wake up. Do you not perceive what I'm doing? You just turned in on yourselves. You don't call on me. You don't weary yourself for me. In other words, you're not putting much effort into this relationship and into this faith. There's a wonderful Peanuts cartoon that I saw years and years ago where Charlie Brown is sitting, obviously very reflective, and his pal Lucy comes and sits beside him and said, what are you thinking about, Charlie? He said, I'm just wondering if I should ask God what you're going to do about all the problems in the world, all the injustices. And Lucy said, so why don't you? And Charlie Brown says, because I'm worried he might ask me the same question. Brilliant. Gets it spot on. That this faith is not about God being the chess master and human beings and the rest of life being pieces on the board that he just moves around according to his will. It's about a relationship, and it's about a shared project. God working in us, with us, and through us. But we have to hear, we have to perceive and understand, we have to embrace it, we have to let it go deep, and we have to respond to it. If we don't do that, then the proclamation, alongside the invitation to us, comes to nothing. So God is asking you and me, behold, I am doing a new thing, because God's always doing new things. That's what he's about. Do you perceive it? In the midst of this pandemic, new things are happening. And as we emerge from it, new things will be there in seed form, but they will only come to fruition if they're nurtured and watered, and if we respond to the miracle of God's grace in the here and now, so that the future can be very, very different. And coming back to the Peanuts cartoon, again, a number of years ago, I saw one of these funny cards. And it was obviously Moses and the people of Israel about to come out of the land of Egypt. And in the cartoon, Moses is standing there with his staff, and the Red Sea has been, separated, and there's two big banks of water, a huge channel for the people to walk across, but they're looking kind of anxious, and they're not really up for it. And the caption reads, Moses looking at them saying, "What do you mean it's muddy?" Which I thought was brilliant. We sometimes want God to do everything. No, shared responsibility. And sometimes it can be hard work. The people in exile in Babylon, not all of them returned to the land. It was a handful who went back and rebuilt that temple after long, long struggles. God blessed them. God opened the door for them to go back. He blessed them when they were there, but they were pioneers, and it didn't suit everybody. Not all of that's why there was a strong Jewish community in Iraq, even up until very recently in history, because not all the exiles wanted that adventure of going through the desert and in the pioneering work of building the city of Jerusalem and the temple up again. Following God is hard work, but it's tremendous work because it's future-orientated and it's about all that he has purposed for you and me and for our world. But we are his eyes, his mouth, his ears, the hands, the feet. The beating heart that we have, if it's in tune with the beating heart of God, we together in partnership, God and humans, can create wonderful things. And that's the dynamic challenge of this book. Both the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, and the stories there of new things that God did with and in through his people. And then the New Testament, in the light of Easter. Easter was like a big bang all over again, propelling the church out into the world. And it's in that aftermath that we live and move and have our being. So these affirmations that I began with, and affirmations with the can, it's not just window dressing. These are wonderful rituals and repetitions and phrases that link us with the power of this faith. We have eyes of flesh. God wants us to have eyes of faith. I discovered this many years ago, and I just came across it when I was thinking about this message. It's just entitled Explorer God, and I finish with this. Explorer God, you have put within us a spirit of adventure to move us beyond the immediate and to explore even our most familiar environment to its fullest potential. May each day become an adventure of people, tasks, places, and responsibilities. And when I feel grey and lifeless, may your spirit remind me that each day brings its own gifts and that the best is yet to be. And underneath that, it just says, a prayer of a woman at home. I don't know if she was in lockdown, but she certainly was creative in using her time. May the Explorer God bless you and me this coming week and empower us to make the most of each day that we are given. Thank you for watching, and may God be with you. Can I close with an intimation that this coming week there will be reflections again from the Manse, Monday to Friday. And I'll be looking at Still Crazy After All These Years, Paul Simon song, but alongside that, Still Christian After All These Years, and it's personal reflections on these things. So that's Monday to Friday. Thank you for watching. God be with you all.